Yeah, recording. I'm going to give the D-man
I'm
permission.
recording.
I'm
The
just
deep
decided
permission.
I'm never going to call you the D-man again. I instantly regretted that. Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week, I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert, Ian Barnard, American retro design expert, Dustin Lee, and the incredibly talented and also expert South African illustrator, Lisa Gland. In today's episode, we're talking about paranoia, competition, and needing therapy for your design work. So without further ado, let's get into the show, people. What's up? We got the four of us back together again.
First time in ages.
I know. So we're all incredibly busy, popular people, by all accounts, and
Speak for yourself.
busy schedules. So it's been forever since we had all four of us together, and we've had a slew of amazing guests, which I've really enjoyed.
Yeah.
But all four of us said recently, we're like, kind of miss just talking crap, like with you guys as friends. It's great interviewing people. It's great getting their value on the show. I've missed just talking nonsense with the three of you.
Yeah, because let's face it, we're good at speaking crap.
Oh, we are.
It's like a band. You go out on tour and you're like meeting girls and you're meeting like famous people and you're doing all this stuff. But sometimes like the band just has to get back together and just have some time alone. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And that rock star lifestyle, that is the lifestyle of a design podcaster. I think it is testament to that.
Hang
on
a minute, let me just get my TV and chuck it out the window.
Dynamite down the toilet. So also I have to caveat this episode by saying we literally have like 35, 36, maybe 37 minutes. So obviously we're going to deliver. We're going to compact as much value in as we can. But essentially it's going to be short. It's going to be nonsensical because we're all giddy to be back together. So I'm just putting that out there before we jump in.
So prepare yourself.
Prepare yourself. But we actually were talking about today's topic before we started recording. And then Lisa was like, oh yeah, we should probably record this. We are here to do a podcast after all. And we were talking about paranoia and specifically around competition. And I've been feeling this more and more. Dustin's like the expert in this. He literally talks to his therapist about this, which is great. And I believe in therapy. I also, I find it kind of mildly hilarious, not to undermine it, just how specific it is around the design industry. Do you know what I mean, Dustin? Because
absolutely.
like, it's such a valid thing. But, in a world of like what therapists have to deal with all these broad issues and stuff, you're like, and they released another texture back. Like, I bet they've never had that with any other client.
I think I've had patterns of this in my life before I was in this industry. But it's funny because I will have rage is too strong a word, jealousy, insecurity, anger at people when I feel like they've done certain things. And yet I never feel jealousy about my wife. I've never felt it about girlfriend. It's so strange to have jealousy over scan textures or Procreate brushes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's your other kind of like love affair,
Yeah.
Your girlfriend on the side.
You're not the guy at home with your wife getting ready for date night. You're like, oh, honey, you look beautiful. A little too beautiful, if you're asking me.
I open up the Procreate files. I'm like, no one's ever going to be as good as you. You don't listen to what they say. They don't know you like I know you. They're rubbish. They're rubbish.
In that red. Yeah.
I'd love to know, Ian and Lisa, where do you fall on the spectrum? Because I'm going to give the number one slot to Dustin. I think he probably gets this the most.
For sure.
For sure, hands down. He gets the gold medal. I feel like I might be second, especially in the last few months. It's so busy, it's so competitive out there, it's crazy, and it's entering my mind more and more, and I don't like it. I feel like it puts you on the back foot. I feel like it makes you operate from a position of fear, which sucks with business but also with creativity.
Tom, before we move to everybody else, can you explain, because I feel like the three of us are product creators. You own a different type of business. The model is slightly different. So where is your insecurity coming from, or where is your competitiveness coming from?
I don't know. I think like as I'm doing more and more stuff, I get scared to put some of it out there. which might surprise people because I put a lot out there, but there's a lot of like secret projects and stuff that I've been working on, and I'm scared to tell people because I'm like, what if they take that idea and run with it, or release it before I do, or all that kind of stuff. And it's nonsensical because experience tells me the more people I do share it with, I actually get really valuable feedback and collaborations come from it. And I know that, like, logically I know it's a good thing to share, but I'm just in that position now of like like you talking to your Procreate brushes. Anyone not watching the YouTube version and listening, I'm kind of miming, like holding everything close, and I'm like, it's mine, it's all mine, like little Gollum, not in a greedy way, but like a protective way. It's like, these are my
Yes, of
babies,
course. It's your baby.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can see what you mean, Tom, because it's like I think it's when you release anything, whatever your department you're working in, there's always that scarcity of that's the right word, of other people taking it and quickly pushing it out there. I think people must feel that when they do like Kickstarter campaigns for a new idea for a product or a new bit of tech that someone else might, like a big company might just go, yeah, let's take the idea and just make it. We've got the
and it happens.
Money. Yeah,
like how many designers do we know where they did a beautiful piece and like or sorry, nameless
no brands.
organization went and put it across a whole clothing line and sold millions of it, right? It happens all the time.
Yep.
It's so wrong.
And
It does. And you know what I find weird though? I wonder if it's industry specific, because if I look at the music industry, they're genre setters, right? How do they feel about the fact that, in a couple of months' time, somebody else is bringing out a song that sounds just like their work, but obviously got their own spin on it? Is that a compliment? Is it enough of a compliment to feel that you are still being promoted as the genre setter? Or do you feel insecure because now, oh my goodness, there's like a new kid on the block and they've stolen my work? Is it specific just to us? Is it specific to...
I don't think it's just us or just designers. I think it's everyone.
But then, so then, if it is like that, then I would say, then as a community, I guess we need to, it's what I was saying to you earlier on, Tom. It's like we need to all kind of help each other and not... I mean, you can't get away from the fact that there are people out there who are just in it to, gain a quick buck, and they'll steal ideas. But generally speaking, I think people are good, aren't they? Are they?
I like to think so. Let me reshare
I
the
don't think it's
example I
black
gave
and
you
white. I think it's
guys.
spectrum.
Like, yeah, right?
Yeah, there is a spectrum. You're right.
Yeah, like before we hit record, I was telling you guys I just got off a call with Peggy Dean from the Pigeon Ladders, if anyone knows her. She was on a weekly hangout.
Yeah. She's great.
Lovely. She's great, very talented. She was telling me how she released this like how to draw watercolor botanicals book, and pretty much at exactly the same time, a competitor, I'm going to call them, in her space released a very similar book. I mean, they had differences, but it was pretty much the same topic. And she was feeling this knot in her stomach and this paranoia, and it just felt really uncomfortable about the whole thing for quite a while, she was telling us. And then she DM'd her on Instagram and said, hey, I know you must have seen my book as well. You're probably feeling the same exact things that I am. Why don't we do something together though? So they actually did a special where, to both their audiences, they released a deal where you could get both books. And so they did this crossover collaboration. And I think by the sound of it, it did really well for them. But not only that, they went on to do more stuff together. They became increasingly friendly, to the point they now go away to conferences and stuff and share a room. And she's now one of her best friends.
That's crazy.
And so hearing that today, and then recently when we had Becca on the podcast, she said, Dustin asked, I think, how do you deal with competition? And she was like, I invited all my competitors over for wine and cheese. And I was like, you just became my personal hero. And they kind of make it look so easy, I guess. Whereas there's like Dustin and I who are like skirting around all paranoid. And I wish we were hosting like wine and cheese nights, You'd be the first one on the list, Dustin.
The few times that I have reached out to other artists that are similar, that you know, you think that, oh, I'm gonna get kind of like pushback. I'm gonna get you know, like animosity or whatever. And it's literally been the opposite. It's
Mhm.
like, oh my goodness, it's so nice to hear from you. Like, this is so cool. Like, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. And it's just, I think we're all like secretly in our studios thinking, oh my goodness, everybody's like, you know, it's such a competitive world, and we all need to kind of almost, you know, kill each other in a way. Sorry, that sounds a bit harsh, but you know what I'm trying to say. And you know, but it actually, sorry, but what I was just going to say, but actually, we're all in the same boat, and we actually all just want to connect and feel normal and human, and we just need to make the effort, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
Dustin.
I think what jades me about the whole thing, and I'm working on it, because you can't live that way. And when our guest last week had mentioned inviting people over for a drink or whatever, it sounds like a very healthy way to do things. And I think you will get taken advantage of. People will get information they get from you if you become closer to them and use it a small amount to your detriment. But you'll also gain like a lot of things, including like, I think, happiness, like partnerships, all sorts of very positive things from it, much more than you do negative. But I think and tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I feel like people are very much like good people, but they're on a spectrum. So once money gets involved, once a certain threshold of monetary gain
Yeah.
is available, people will begin to shift their values. Well,
Yes.
we're still friends and I still am loyal to this person, but I'll shift my values a little bit because the monetary gain is so much of doing that. And I've witnessed that happening.
Money's the
And,
root of all evil, right?
no, I don't think so. I mean,
I do. I think it brings out like horrendous greed and like bad traits.
It
Well, it's
does,
not
and I think
actually
that's why you can't value money as the number one thing. I mean, I think the number one thing, and I'm working on this, is thinking of people realizing that money is not. Once I have plenty of money in terms of taking care of my family, not like Bill Gates,
Mhm.
but I have enough. And I
Dustin,
need to be comfortable with that and focus more on people.
you know why I would never screw over you or anyone else, even if someone was like, "Here's $500,000,000," right? Because your reputation will be with you for your whole life,
Mm.
and you can't put a price on that, right? Like if someone offered you a sack of money right now, but then for the rest of your life, it's like, oh, it's that guy that screws people over. I could never live with that for personal reasons, but also it would be a horrendous business move. No one would want to work with you.
Yeah, and I also think it's not sustainable because, as you said, I think at the end of the day, people start recognizing, you know, what you are in the industry. You know, are you a trendsetter, an original artist, or are you somebody who just runs around copying other people, but you know, puts your own spin on it? I think, I don't know. Maybe I'm what do you call it, naive to think that that isn't sustainable, but I just don't think it is. And I also think it's exhausting because what happens is I think you spend more time and energy trying to mimic somebody else, and it's less energy and time if you actually just create something that's natural to yourself.
I agree.
But that obviously doesn't take away the fact that you just described people, Dustin, as you said, like there's a scale. So, I mean, I would just think that you should use your gut when it comes to sharing sensitive information about your business. Obviously, you know, you'd have to kind of measure who you could trust fully and who is just nice to know and not be an arch rival enemy.
Nemesis.
You know, but yeah, exactly. And I think there is there's what do you call it, there's value, that's the word. There's value in collaboration with your competition if they are the right people. But I agree with you, Dustin. I don't think everybody falls into that camp. Because I think you're dealing with a whole bunch of, besides the money is a factor, people start getting weird. It's also insecurities. Some people just don't feel secure enough to collaborate or you know, talk about ideas with other competitors. They just don't. And yeah, so I guess it's a bit of a juggling act.
I'll share something with you guys that I haven't shared before. And this is years ago. This is like 4 years ago, maybe. But we worked with someone and we had a good partnership. But in terms of what we've done at Design Cuts with our bundles and that kind of thing, they were participating in them, did very well from them, saw that, and then basically set up in direct competition against us, doing the exact same kind of thing, even to the point of like ripping off a lot of copywriting bits, and as in like the text and tonality and stuff. And so that stuff does make you paranoid when you see that kind of stuff happening. And it's
and
icky.
what happened to their business?
It might still be going, but like nothing spectacular, because it was a knockoff version.
I just really don't think that is sustainable.
Maybe I'm
well, and Tom, so you can probably relate, because like, so for me, like me and Tom have had talks about, like, for instance, because you're very good at being like, what do you are you uncomfortable with something, or what's going on? You're pretty good at like asking, what's up? I know you're like paranoid about this stuff. What do you think? And I've told you, I have certain partners that I work with. I don't want you working with those partners, or I don't want you reaching out to them and making them your partner. These are people that I work with that, anyways, I could go on and on about that, but that's very much the same thing, right? So like, I imagine you can probably like understand that, because that's very similar to like you having a partner and then they're like, well, I'm going to set up a Design Cuts thing. Like, it wouldn't be cool if I was like, well, Tom, I'm going to put a little spin on Deal Sites. It's not really a deal site. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind, I'd like to reach out to the people that you work with on Design Cuts and make a deal of the day site. So I guess my point is that even though we're like you, as opposed to us having individual smaller shops, it's actually like a similar. So it's not just localized to one thing. It's a much broader.
Yeah. And I respect that. And there's been a couple of times where I haven't actually realized that there might be a collaboration, and someone's been like, oh, actually I'm doing this with them, including you, where it's like, oh, I'm doing this with Dustin. And I've actually messaged and been like, well, you know what? Like, I don't want to do it then. It's not worth it. Dustin's a friend, and I respect that.
Yeah.
And it's a better long-term play, right?
But I've had people, they'll be like, hey, you want to be on this deal site? You want to be on that deal site? I'm like, I could be on yours once, and maybe you'll never answer my emails. They'll write me all the time and do all sorts of cool stuff with me.
Yeah.
But here's a perfect example of you guys being friends, even though you competitors in a way, but because you're friends, the one was aware of the deal or whatever that with the other person and didn't want to do that. So it actually pays to be friendly.
Yeah, and like we do this podcast that brings everyone attention, and I feel genuinely for all you guys, but I feel like really proud of what you're building, Dustin. Like, as a fellow creative entrepreneur, I'm like, good for you,
it's amazing,
man. Like,
stuff.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I feel that way about all you guys too.
Oh, lovey-dovey episode. Bring it in here. So Ian, how does this work? Let's go away from the website thing and the product thing. How does this work in terms of just design work? Like, as a letterer, for example, if you're seeing people who are in your space doing very similar things, how do you feel about it?
I suppose it's a bit different because you're, having, we're talking about slight styles we've done in the past. Like, if you're an illustrator and you have a certain style, like Lisa, it's much harder to replicate that through everything you do. You can, I've seen that she's been ripped off in terms of her products, but in terms of her style, is much harder than products to rip off because it's having that portfolio of all those different projects, I suppose. There are people who are doing similar stuff, but I suppose it's sort of like I suppose there's not as much substance to it. I suppose people don't just hire for that trend. They may do, but they look at more than just one project and then decide to go with that person. I think it's more like an overview they look at a lot of your work, and then they see like a running theme, and they also see, like, if I was in a different position and I was, say, a creative director and I was trying to hire an illustrator, I would look at their work, then I'd also look at what they're like as their personalities. Like, if they're like mouthing off other designers on Twitter, or
they're not,
or
yeah,
negative,
it feels icky.
Yeah, and it was actually, I think actually no, this doesn't look like it'd be a good relationship, even though their work's really good. What's so funny?
I mean, look at your collaboration with Stefan. I mean, that's been amazing.
Yeah, and I
it?
suppose we are quite similar in what we do. There's a lot of crossover, so working together has actually been very beneficial for both of us.
Perfect case study.
And it would be easy to look at that and think, like, I think in my mind, I'd like to think someday I'll grow to be as wise as you about this. But in my mind, I would have been like, this guy's a competitor. Yeah, I can't be making a product with him. And I would be completely wrong, because that worked really well. And by the way, I was laughing about the Twitter thing because someone that's talking a bunch of crap on Twitter, like, I can just imagine that would probably not be a great partner.
No.
And actually, like, I don't understand when people don't think, like, loads of people do this forever. Like, you might be just the person who works in Target, but you are actually the brand of Target when you're mouthing someone off on Facebook, or you're getting drunk and in a fight.
Yep.
It all reflects something. Your actions always reflect something. And whether that's your own personal brand or whether that's your company you work for, because like you look at your own experience. If you see someone, like, I live in a small town, if I see someone up the pub really drunk harassing some women and they work for a supermarket, then actually that would tar my experience of that supermarket. Nothing the supermarket's done, it's actually the employee, but they are still part of the company. And so, because like I had this experience where I was walking with my son and daughter from the supermarket, and this taxi driver was laying into a Domino's pizza guy and like swearing his head off. And I was like, this is not appropriate. So like I made a complaint because that's not, and it turned out to be the boss of the taxi company. So
the complaint probably didn't get very far.
But like, that really, you think, well, I'm not going to use said taxi company because they
shame
can't,
them on
because they're swearing at 6:00 in the evening in front of my children. Yeah. So I think there's a lot more goes into it than just your work.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to realize that, because it makes you a more authentic and rounded person, rather than, I just don't care outside of my work.
Okay, so I guess the follow-up question.
Sorry, that's a little bit off.
No. I get it though. So to kind of distill what you're saying, in essence, we're all competing, not just with our work, but with numerous factors. But isn't it weird that we choose to hone in on the work as being the thing that we get paranoid and jealous and protective over? That would be like saying, hey, I'm funny, and so I'm really going to resent Dustin because he's funny too. And I don't want him having a monopoly on like people being attracted to his humor. Like that would be a bizarre thing, but we are technically, and that's a random example. I don't think I'm funny, but you know what I mean? It's like, but like, love you too. So like, for example, Christo, right? I teach a lot of like similar stuff that he does. Obviously he's a lot bigger and more established. I'd say we're quite different as personalities. He's like very methodical and thoughtful, whereas I'm just an idiot. So so we're quite different personalities though. And like he's like Seth Godin, I would say, like very philosophical and kind of wise in like a quiet way, which is awesome. If that was my nature and I was like philosophical and wise in a quiet way, then it would be really weird for me to be like, I really resent that in Chris. Like, how dare he be like that? Because that's just him. But why should I feel any different being like, oh, I really resent that they're like doing illustration in that style? Because that's just them too. That's a natural extension of them.
Can I ask Dustin a question? If like someone just out of college, they love vintage stuff, they love retro stuff, they just have this obsession with it and really want to make products based on it, is that okay or not?
That's okay. That's okay. I mean, there's a lot of people that have shops that do that. I think so there's a lot of shops that do it, and it's funny because I can't name the ones that I'm not bothered by. In fact, there's only really like a very, 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 very limited number that I am. And it's only because I think partially because I'm insecure, and I think they do what they're doing well. And so that makes me uncomfortable. I mean, that's just the honest truth, is I have some insecurity about it. I'm worried about taking care of my family, and that makes me uncomfortable. And then also sometimes you obviously, I try not to, but Lisa probably does this too. You see people do similar things to you, and you kind of watch what they're doing. I've seen some things where they mirror things that I do. So I might do something on my website, and all of a sudden they do it on their website. It's very obvious that they're doing what I'm doing. Very obvious. And because I feel some insecurity, I get nervous. But no, in general, no. I mean, of course, I don't feel like I have a monopoly on that, or that that's not right. I think when someone just gets too close, and to be honest, when someone is just very good at what they're doing and a legitimate competitor, it's just nerve-wracking because I want to keep providing for my family, and I don't want to have to give up my home or not know how I'm going to pay for my retirement or do different things. That's the truth. I'm just scared, being scared.
No, and you know what, Dustin, I so understand that and appreciate your honesty about that, because I think it would be unfair on you and everybody else that suffers so badly from that to say that there are people who got it all sorted out and they don't deal with that. We all sort of deal with that to some degree. But my hope for you is that you can maybe find a way to see it like we're all, like there's enough of the pie to go around.
Abundance mentality instead of scarcity mindset.
And I know
it's the weird thing though is that when it comes to so many other people, I do feel an abundance mindset. I think it's I think it's when I can directly, through surveys, through social media, through different things, I can see a person is taking market share from you. I mean, I can see their surveys. People like, I left you. I left you. Now I'm giving money to this person. And that is very hard to look at that person and say that there's abundance in that.
No, I understand that. But do you not think? Yeah, because do you not think then it should drive you to either shift your focus in your business or try something new or start a new trend, or I mean I don't know what you kind of been dabbling with.
That's what I try to do. That's exactly what I try to do, but that does not get rid of my insecurity or my anxiety about taking care of my family. But I try to work on it.
And
I understand
I'm the same, and I think when you look at like market dynamics, so when there is competition, it basically breeds what is the word? Innovation, right? Because if there was no competition, you would rest on your laurels and just keep doing the same old thing, and it would be super easy.
Correct.
And that's a blessing and a curse, because it forces your hand to get better and to iterate, and that's as true of business as it is design. Lisa, you can't be designing the same old stuff you were 5 years ago. You're constantly moving the goalposts and trying new things. Same with Ian. Ian's very good at that experimentation. And so I think that's a positive that comes from it. It can equally be exhausting, because sometimes I think, man, it's so unrelentless. It's relentless. It's like, I can never just sit and enjoy it, even for like a month. And just be like, let's just keep doing what we're doing because we're good at that. Because it's like there's constantly people trying to chip away at it. And that can be exhausting, because it's like you're having to reinvent the wheel constantly. And I feel like that is maybe perpetuated by the internet and there being so much noise out there and things moving so quick.
Yeah.
My dad didn't really have that. He's run his business 30 years. He's experienced it more on the tail end recently with the internet, but they could comfortably like keep doing the same old thing for like 10 years and be good. Whereas now for 10 minutes, it's like, oh, the landscape's completely changed. I need
It's
I need to
changed,
mix it
yeah.
up again. And it's
Yeah.
like, so yeah, that's one element. I guess the other point would be, imagine if it were just you. That might initially seem like an appealing prospect, but I guarantee the market, i.e. how many people were interested in your style or your thing, would be much smaller. So if Ian was the only hand letterer in the world, then the hand lettering community, the millions, trillions of people that are into that thing, it's obviously been a massive trend in recent years. That wouldn't have happened if it was just Ian. Like barely anyone would know about hand lettering, right? Because it would just be him producing that stuff. And so the same way that Ian got in at the right time and rode that wave, that growing trend, that trend could by definition not happen without a ton of people doing it and getting involved and sharing it. So his competitors have helped him.
Yeah.
Like obviously it's a bell curve. You can get to saturation point where it becomes a negative,
and you know what
but
else
it's a trend.
Yeah. Sorry, Dustin, quickly, as I'm just trying to find ways for you to think differently.
Well, I have a
is
therapist
that
that I'm paying that does that. So I mean,
No,
I am. So thank you.
Lisa,
But I am learning.
free.
I am learning how to do this. And to be honest, if you were to look at like a graph of like my feelings about it, they've like very, very much changed. Like I realize that a lot of it is how I see it, and I realized that a big thing from that I learned was I'm telling stories in my head about the other person when I don't know what the other person is doing. And so, for instance, when I talk about a competitor that is threatening to me or makes me feel insecure or nervous, they're not doing anything wrong. They're not. I'm sure, 99.99% sure, they're not thinking, let's pull a quick one on this guy. They're just running a business just like I am, and they're excited to see success, and they're excited to do things they enjoy doing. And I'm slowly growing into that, but it took me 38 years to F myself up. And so it's going to take some years to slowly bring myself out of it.
appreciate that. But I also want to throw in another one into the mix that you can think about, is that, I mean, I don't know you like completely, because I mean, I only know you via our chats here, but I know that you are a smart guy and you are extremely resourceful, and you know how to run a business really well. And just based on that, you'll be fine no matter what happens.
And like you and your family will be fine. So
Yeah.
the doom worst case scenario you're thinking of basically will never happen.
Yeah. Because you know what? Because that's the thing. That's the gift that I always think that my parents gave us as kids, us three kids that they had. Like, we'll be okay because we're hard workers and we apply ourselves, and no matter what happens, we'll get through it. And I think, Dustin, you have that in you. And I know it's difficult to always think like that, but there's no shadow of a doubt in my mind that you'll be sorted no matter what happens.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I've had a couple other people saying that, and especially people that I respect. Tom has said that, you said that, my friend, multiple friends that are people that I just respect that have done things that I think are really neat have said that, and it really helps to hear it, because if someone hasn't done that and they say it, you're kind of like, okay, well, I hope that's true. But when someone has, it feels really good, because you're like, oh, well, they actually know.
Yeah, they understand what it takes.
Yeah, so I appreciate it. And yeah, just to reiterate, because I don't know who listens to this, or if a particular person would listen to this and think I think they're talking about me. When he says this, I really do know that this is a personal thing and everyone has the right to make things. And it's just...
No, but that's what, we appreciate your honesty, because we all suffer from it. Yeah.
We do. And shall we maybe talk a little about how does that feel in terms of mapping to your creative output? So when you're in this headspace, for me, I feel like I'm on the back foot. I'm not in that flow state of just wanting to like push forward and do all this stuff and create. I'm on the back foot. I'm frozen and paralyzed by my paranoia. And it's really not very healthy for actually designing and creating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about you guys?
Is that is that not maybe a separate episode? Because that's like
That's a big
changing your
one.
whole changing your whole way you feel. Because when money comes into play and having to earn a living, to support your family and yourself, your creativity, it becomes like a weird thing, doesn't it?
I agree. I mean, we could almost segue it, because I think unfortunately we're coming up on time. Short episode today, but like I
Yeah.
don't know, Lisa, like you've talked to me about people ripping off your work.
Mm.
Can you talk me through what that does for your creative output? And then we can do a full episode on mindset.
Yes. Well, I mean, initially you get really, I get frustrated. I mean, I'm just, I'm a human being, so I go through all those emotions. I get angry. I get frustrated. Then I start, panicking, like, oh my goodness, they're going to take market share, as as Dustin says, and then what's going to happen to my business, and then it will probably last depending on how severe the knockoff is, and I guess how well it's doing. So it depends on all those things. That's how long it'll last to me. But it could be like a couple of days, and I just don't feel in a good headspace to create. So I try to do all my thinking things that I always have. Like my go-to thoughts. To try and get myself out of the funk.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's not great. It's
not.
Can I add to that quickly? Because I go through a similar process. I'll at first feel angry, and then I'll feel threatened and like cornered, and like I have to respond immediately in some way to try to counteract what I see the threat. But the positive of it has been that it's forced me to say, who exactly is my customer, and why is my customer different than this person's customer or this person's customer? What is this other person simply it's not in their nature to do that it is for me? I mean, so for instance, like I have like this silly cat. Well, you guys know I have all sorts of silly junk around. I love this like very kitschy kind of thing, right? So like I realized I have like a different audience, and so I should really focus on embracing that place that I'm in that the person doesn't want to go to.
Yes.
Yeah, because I love it anyways, and they don't.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
I don't know
it does
about
help in a way.
Yeah, it does. And just not if the same happens for you, but what it also does is it drives me to make a better product. And also, I guess in a way people could say that I'm kind of like giving in to the pressure, but it also drives me to come up with something that's more unique and complicated to rip off.
I love that. I just had a thought, which is kind of hilarious actually when you think about it. If you're really going more all in on who you are and what you love to create, not only is that empowering for you, but think of how miserable that other person must be. Because imagine if your entire output is predicated on trying to be someone else that you're not.
Exhausting.
That's exhausting. That's a rest. So you think you feel paranoid? They must be miserable. They're literally trying to cram their size 10 feet into Lisa Glanz's size 5 shoes. And they're probably in mental agony doing that. And yet we never think about that. It's always like me. I feel so like paranoid and trapped and in the corner. Like I literally think they must be miserable, because I've done it at points where I'll try and like live someone else's life to some extent, and it just makes me miserable. And when I'm more me, it makes me happy. And so if they want to live my life, they're never going to do that as well as I can.
I remember thinking that about someone. I remember at one point just thinking, we can't outdo whoever at what they're doing. If someone's doing something first, you can't outdo them at what they're doing, so you can't even go there and try to do it, because you'll never outdo it. But one, like, I get this might be a good way to wrap this up, is one thing that I've noticed and I try to remind myself of constantly is I can think of all sorts of stories of people being paranoid or angry or resentful and lashing out at people because they don't like what someone's doing. And that almost always ends horribly for the person. You're never like, oh, you know what? Things were bad. And that person really lashed out and became super negative. And I'm like, it really worked out for that person. Like typically what happens is like someone embraces things in a positive way, or they try to manage their expectations and do it the most positive way to approach it. That's what works out, right? Like inviting people to cocktails works out way better.
Yeah.
than writing people threatening emails or back talking crap about someone behind their back.
Yeah,
I love it.
it's just
So-
it's not cool. Yeah.
So
It's always better to be positive. It's just a little harder sometimes.
if the listeners tune in next week, I will be announcing the launch of my new product, the retro hand-lettered person creator, and it's going to be a smash hit, guys. No, that's
Sounds like a real compromise. You're spreading yourself thin amongst.
yeah, damn, I got a niche down. No, that's very wise words to end on, though, Dustin. I hope for everyone
is.
listening and watching at home that was helpful. I mean, look at these guys that I miss so dearly. They're all super successful. They're killing it. They're very established creatives. They've developed their style. They've done the billion things which we advise you should try and do on the show. They've done it all. They're a success. They still feel just as paranoid as the rest of you. And we all do.
Can I say something that actually having success is actually can be a bad point,
Mhm.
because then like you worry about losing it.
The
So
success.
I
Yep.
think, you know, when you're building up and then you do hit something that is in a firm of success, whether that's financial or whether that's, you know, I don't know, you've got now an income from your shop or whatever that may be, you then paranoid about losing it, whereas before you were just not, you know, it wasn't the main thing. But I think
No.
once it becomes the main thing, that's when you're like, you worry about it, I suppose.
Yep.
Or I do for me, I suppose. And I like, you know, and I suppose it's just and also just the ups and downs of the freelance lifestyle is that the feast and famine thing, you know, the money is that it's hard not to focus on the money because, you know, inevitably what we do, whether it's the work or the products, is to bring in the money, I suppose. You know, I love doing it, but obviously the ultimate goal is to pay the bills through your work, and sometimes that can, you know, the reason why we're anxious and the reason why we worry, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I 100%
Sorry,
agree. And
let's finish on a positive.
yeah. Knowledge bomb from Mr. Ian Bernard, as Dustin likes to say. No, I think that's truer words were never spoken. Wise words from my man Ian to wrap up the show. And we will see you guys next time when hopefully we're going to talk more about mindset, but the positive stuff too, not just the fact that we all are paranoid wrecks.
I feel like this is pretty positive considering the subject matter, though.
Yeah,
True.
it is positive
that.
because we all feel that you know it's normal.
Mhm.
We're all going through it. So,
I mean,
yeah.
none of us are normal, but we'll
True.
we'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.